Hey guys, Rob Summerall here. Welcome back to Cuisine for the Quarantine. This is an exciting episode because we're going to launch out into the wonderful world of desserts. You know, it's starting to feel a little warm outside, and I thought tonight we'd go south of the border with my special, famous fried ice cream dessert. You're going to love this. Hang out. Recipe, you're going to need just a few simple ingredients. I've got some out of the freezer, some dark chocolate that I've had for a while, a pinch of salt. We're going to use about 6 cups of cornflakes. I've got 2 tablespoons of cinnamon that we're going to divide. I've got a stick and a half of butter. I've got a thing of whipped topping, a mostly full thing of vanilla ice cream. I'm not sure which one of my kids got into it earlier before production. And then I've got about a 1/4 cup of rum chata for some flavoring. So this is a crowd favorite. This recipe is a very simple recipe. It just requires you to have just a little bit of forethought before you come to the table because it's going to take a little while to harden afterwards. I first had it, I think, at my friend Karen Pewitz's house. I went online to try to find a recipe like that. I found one and I didn't really love the proportions that were in the recipe, so I've tweaked it over the years. It's become a staple in our household. I think it's going to become a staple in yours. Feel free to tweak it towards your own taste and what you have in the house. In fact, as I've given you the recipe today, I've sort of tweaked it for quarantine purposes because I didn't have everything that I exactly needed in the house. And so I had to downgrade some of the elements, but I wanted to give it to you as I'm actually cooking it today so you could have that recipe. So I've got a skillet that is a nonstick skillet. It's over a little bit above medium heat, and I'm going to go ahead and add about half of our butter to it and let that get melting because we're going to make some crunchy, cinnamony, sugary toppings. Well, as you can tell, I found my tripod, so now I can do a little bit of creative shots here. Please nobody tell my friends at the fire department, Zeb Willoughby, Lewis O'Brien, Rick Games, Jesse Alshire, that I have my tripod on my stove, near the eye of my stove. But hey, it's cuisine for the quarantine, right? So I've got this butter that's melting down here. Again, I don't think that this recipe would do very good with margarine. I think that you probably need butter. And then I've got half of my sugar here. This is a half of a cup of sugar. And I'm going to put this in here, and I'm basically going to bring this almost to a caramel stage, okay? Where it's bubbling. You'll see what it looks like here in just a second. It's got to cook. The butter's got to melt. We got to have some chemistry happen with the sugar where the crystals break down to the sugar and they get nice and yummy. Okay, we are getting very close here. If you can still feel grit in the sugar, you're not there. You want all the grit out of the sugar. So people have asked me, could I throw a little vanilla in here? Absolutely. Throw it in at the last second though, because the alcohol is going to burn up. I'm going to put some of my cinnamon in here, maybe 1/3 of my cinnamon in here. Oh my goodness. As soon as that cinnamon hits the heat, it says, "I'm going to make you happy, Mr. Nose, because I smell so good." Now we're going to take about half of our cornflakes. We're going to put them in here, and we're just going to coat them generously, delicately. Honestly, it doesn't matter if we break them up too bad, but I don't know. I just feel like I'm doing a better job cooking if I don't break them up. But you can see them getting nice and coated there. Now this is only half because I'm going to repeat this step. And you say, well, why don't you just do it all at one time? Because I don't have a nonstick skillet that big. You got a bigger nonstick skillet than me? Have at it, my friends, but you got to be able to accommodate 6 cups. And I told you I'm into the recipe. Normally I do 8 cups, but I'm doing 6 cups today because that's what we had in the cornflake box. And by the way, this is not a time for you to be using Kellogg's. Use your old store brand here because we're going to make them taste like something different anyway. I think that we're kind of good there. Just give them just a second. Let's take these over here and I'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, so I've got some wax paper laid out on the table here, on the counter. I'm just gonna hit it with a little spray. You say, why spray when you've already got wax paper? Well, because when you're dealing with hot sugar, it will stick. Now remember, I've only got half my batch here. So I'm going to spread these out. Don't really want them to be on top of each other. Now what we have here is essentially we've made cornflake candy, okay? And in a second, you're gonna see that we're gonna turn this into primarily a crust, also a little bit of topping and a little bit of mixture that goes inside as well. We can kind of see them. Now, this is gonna have to be all the way cooled before you can put it with your ice cream mixture. So spreading it out actually helps with that process too. Okay. Now we are going to do it all again, except this time I'm gonna remember to put a dash of salt in it because I forgot last time. No big deal. You've heard me say before, we're not building rockets here, we're just feeding our family. So I want to show you something. You can see where these are kind of have sugar clumps in them and those don't. That's because I didn't let all the sugar get melty enough. That's okay. We're going to mix them up together. Before they get too warm, we're going to mix them up, or excuse me, before they get too cool, we're going to mix them up. And I am going to spray and line the bottom of this casserole dish with them so that we can form a crust. Y'all, I am here to tell you, these little dudes are so good. I've been just sitting here nibbling on them. You could make a dessert out of that any old way you want. Now, to be honest, I told you I was thinking about a dessert, but one of the deals is we've been just trying to eat through old things in the back of the pantry. I bet you have too, because we don't want to be wasteful. And there was an old half-eaten box of a little bit stale cornflakes. This is a great thing to do with things like that. Stale cornflakes, they're great for this kind of recipe, and it's a home run. They're gonna be crunchy. You bring them back to life by cooking them a little bit. So, I mean, obviously you don't want anything that's, lived through a nuclear disaster or anything like that, but these guys had probably seen their better day, but they're gonna turn into a wonderful dessert that the family's gonna love. Now let's get the guts of our ice cream filling mixed up. You're gonna love this. So I have dug out ye olden trusty stand mixer. You can see I brought this home from the grocery store. Somebody got into it a little bit. My money is on daughter number 1. She's my ice cream fiend. I've left this, the whole time I've been cooking, I've left this out on the counter so it can soften up a little bit. Because that's really, you want it to be a little bit malleable, okay? So we're gonna work that in there. That's just plain old vanilla ice cream. Get the cheapest you can get. Okay, because like I said, the flavor is going to be in what you bring to the party here. This is a good time to go cheap. I've got a 8-ounce thing of whipped topping here. You know what you call this, don't you, when you're done, right? It's a redneck Tupperware. Let me switch over to the old spatula here. I want to make sure I get it all out. So what you're going to do is we're going to mix this ice cream together with this. It's going to create a lighter filling for the ice cream base. It's going to go on top of that crust that we've already made. Let's get it in there and let's get to mixing. And that's that. Now at this point in time, we're gonna put a little flavor in here. Here's where our rum chata comes in. We're gonna put that 1/4 cup of rum chata in there. You also, Buffalo Trace has a beautiful, delicious creamy bourbon. But I think rum when I think about ice cream and fried ice cream. And then the remainder of our cinnamon is going to go in there. Okay. Don't turn it on too fast. Your cinnamon will fly out like mine just did. And that is that. Guys, I'm telling you, this is such a simple dessert. Isn't that just as simple as it can be? I mean, look at our crust we've got here. It's firmed up a bit. It's going to finish off in the freezer. And what we're going to do at this point in time, grab my spatula, and we're just going to put this topping straight on top of it. It just comes out there. It's nice and malleable right now. It'll refreeze. Look at that. Just delicious. Okay, just work it around there a little bit. Crust is going to move. Now, I love a high crunchy to ice cream ratio. So that's why we have more of these. So we're just going to take and right there on top. Oh, that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. Sometimes I put some of these inside of the ice cream too for a little crunch. Okay. Boom. That is perfect. All right, guys, so one final step before we're gonna get this in the freezer. Actually, you can go ahead and get in the freezer now if you wanted to, but I wanna go ahead and get this on there. I found in the back of my freezer a Ziploc bag with some high quality Ghirardelli bittersweet chocolate in it. And I just like to take this and use a potato peeler of all things, would you imagine? And I'm just gonna make some little curly cues out of it. And I'm gonna use that to decorate the top of this recipe. So let's do that.
It's time!
It's time to chop some things. Look at these beautiful carrots. Chop, 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 chop some things. A sharp knife is your best friend. Keep those fingers tucked in real tight. Just let the blade do the work. Chop, 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 chop some things. Man, I love yellow squash.
All right, so we got our chocolate. I'm just going to shimmy this on there. I just want it to give it a little color. Also, to just give it a little bite. If you don't like the chocolate, don't put it on there. Okay? This is my dessert. I make it how I want it. Okay? You make yours how you want it. We're going to pop this in the freezer. We're going to let it freeze at least for a good 4 hours and come solid. And then we're going to eat it. It's going to be delicious. All right, guys. So we've waited and we have a finished product. That's the hard part about a dessert like this. It's so easy to make, but you got to wait on it to harden up in the freezer. But the wait is well worth it. Let's cut into this bad boy and see what happens. Oh, can you hear the crunch? There you go. Comes right out. You kind of see those layers there. Cinnamon, just a little bit hint. So this is a delicious dessert. I'm gonna have a bite here. It's pretty light and refreshing because the Cool Whip mixed with that ice cream. Definitely cinnamony. And you know, that rum chata, just for those who don't care to cook with things like that, the alcohol content on rum chata is so incredibly low. But it just gives it kind of that very mature flavor to it. And the sprinkles of the dark chocolate on top, wow. You want to serve it when you're trying to be all fancy pants, give it a little dollop of whipped cream and maybe a maraschino cherry, and you're good to go. I mean, this is a restaurant quality dessert. I think you're really gonna love it. So, hey guys, remember, you are on quarantine. There's no reason not to have dessert because it's cuisine for the quarantine. Ba-na-na.